Hello, good evening. So nice to see you all, and it's great to be here at Rochdale Central Library for this Ask the Mayor Q&A session with Andy Burnham here. Good news is we're surrounded by books, so if what you're hearing tonight doesn't, you're not liking it, there's plenty of reading matter that can entertain you for the next 90 minutes. I don't think that will be necessary though, so we've got 90 minutes to squeeze in as many questions for Andy as possible. As has been explained already, everyone, all the questions have come in via the audience who are here tonight, and some coming in on social media as well. I'm going to take a few questions from the floor. I had some that have been pre-submitted. They all relate to different topic areas, and so then when we have those questions, there'll be the opportunity to open it up to the floor with questions that relate to what you've just heard. I just reiterate the need to be respectful, listen to what the mayor is saying, listen to each other, just be polite and allow everyone to ask their questions. We will crack on, and we've got until 9 o'clock. So before we get into it, I'll just let Andy say a few words.
Cheers, Rob, and evening, everybody. Thanks so much for coming along. Thanks to the Leader of the Council and Rochdale NBC for hosting us tonight. You can probably hear my tiny bit croaky this evening. Just back from a trade mission from Singapore and Japan, and I know what you're thinking. Oh, they must have been living it up every night and karaoke, and this wasn't quite like that. It was a bit hot and a bit punishing out there. But there was some good news for Rochdale. I think I just need to get that in from our last trip, and then we confirmed it with this one. Ms. Can in Middleton. Do you know what Ms. Can in Middleton produce?
No, tell me.
You were going to have a wild guess. Sarson's vinegar and Branston pickle. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Did you know 2 great British brands are made in this borough, aren't they, Neil? And they're expanding the plant, and they will long be made in this borough. So we were really pleased with that particular result, which is great. But for those who've been to these things before, who've seen how they work, I may be sending a few more hospital passes in the direction of the Deputy Mayor than normal this evening, and the Chief Constable, who's with us. So any tricky ones, a few more might head in their direction. But no, it's great that so many of you have turned out. Thanks so much, and thanks to you, Rob.
No worries. So let's start off with housing, which is a big issue here and across the country. And we have a question from Jack Smith. First of all, where's Jack?
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Jack.
What do you make of the Labour government's supposed overhaul of the planning system to get Britain building, and what will be the biggest material change of this reform be?
I'll just, before you answer, there was a question that's sort of the other side of that coin from Janice Kidd, who isn't able to ask the question tonight. And she asks, how are you ensuring that England remains a green and pleasant land whilst removing environmental safeguards from planning rules? So I guess two different sides of the same question about housing.
They're both fair questions. I think there's lots of good things in the planning bill that's going through Parliament. The one that attracts us the most is a change to the compulsory purchase laws, which stop people holding out for what we call hope value. People say, oh, we think we can get X amount for this, and they just sit on pieces of land that can blight a whole thing for years. And we think that's a really good change. My general view would be, I think sometimes too much weight is put on planning reform as a way of this will be the key that solves everything. I personally think it can help a little, but I don't think it makes the difference. I think what makes the difference, or would make the difference, is policies like disapplication of right to buy on new build properties, support for councils like this and others to build more homes for social rent and prioritise that. I think we are going to drive some changes in the next period that will make a real difference, hopefully, in the borough. So Middleton is a place where Neil Emmett and I have agreed that we'll have a mayoral development corporation. And I don't know if you've seen what's happened in Stockport. I think that's where, it starts to touch on the second question, that's where we can kind of really go with the grain with what people want, and people then don't resist planning. So Stockport's a really good example where in a rundown part of the town centre, if you know Stockport, it was like, the bit under the viaduct. We created a mayoral development corporation, the first on a town centre, and it's delivered, I think it's around 1,500 homes now, possibly getting up towards 2,000, and totally transformed Stockport town centre, new transport interchange. And now Stockport are going to triple it, actually, to cover 8,000 homes in Stockport town centre. And the thing about that is, if you build more homes in a town centre, you bring sometimes, younger people in to live there. It creates a new nighttime offer, and the whole place gets changed. And we think Middleton, Neil and I, has got massive potential. The council's starting to do it here as well. There's schemes here that are beginning to come through. So to me, and this is an answer to the second question, my own view at the moment is, let's really go at town centre, residential driving town centre regeneration. The truth we've got to accept is the retail space is not needed in the same amount anymore. It just isn't. And we're kidding ourselves if we think it's all going to be like flocking back. And I know there's a shopping centre here, isn't there? I don't know how occupied it is, Neil, but it's not. It's had its best days, let's say. And, the same is true of Middleton as well. And my view is, if you start to replace retail with residential, Stockport is proof that you can turn around the fortunes of a town, and you don't have to go. I think there was a model in Greater Manchester, 10 years ago when I was kind of coming into the role, that was about greenfield first. It's simpler for a developer. Just go to a greenfield, build on it, build for the car, double garage, and in the end, that leaves you in a really, you end up in a bad place, I think, when you constantly do that. So we are turning that around, and it's not just here. There'll be an Ashton MDC. We're looking at a Stalybridge MDC, a Bolton MDC, a Lee MDC. So this is going to be a big feature of Greater Manchester in the next period, and it does, I think, answer the point about balance. If you're going to build in towns and revive them before you go into a greenfield site, I think that's a much better offer for the public.
Andy, thank you. Gentleman on, we'll go to questions on the floor on housing. The gentleman in the cap on the third row.
Hi, Andy. I'd like to know what is being done about people needing temporary accommodation, because from the way I see it, it seems to be getting far worse. I know, because I'm at the ground level housing those who slip through the net. Every time one of my residents calls Greater Manchester Local Authority, they get passed from pillar to post with excuses like, you don't meet the criteria, or you're not vulnerable enough, or you don't have a local connection, you're not. How vulnerable do you have to be? Have your head hanging off or almost dead? Only yesterday, I had a young, vulnerable 19-year-old girl fleeing domestic violence from her father. She presented at Manchester Council via phone, and they told her to contact Stockport Local Authority, to which she has no local connection to either. She is in full-time education from September this year, so needs to be in the area of Manchester. This is unacceptable. I had a young lady that was 8.5 months pregnant not long ago, and was due to drop the baby, and Oldham Local Authority did nothing to help her. If I hadn't been there to help her, she would have been on the streets. I'm one man on benefits. If I can do it with no resources, and I've moved thousands of people on from my own home to supported accommodation and their own property, then why can't the local authority do the same thing I do this year in, year out, with no funds whatsoever? It can be done.
Well, good on you for what you're doing and the support that you're giving to people. I think the answer to your question is the statutory duty that councils have to fulfil doesn't cover everybody. That is just the answer to the question. Obviously, when it's families with kids, the statutory duty comes straight in, and they will find. The case you gave from Manchester, that would need to be looked at, I think, because I would think the duty does arise in that situation. And I don't know why there's sometimes there can be a sort of normal place of residence dispute between the councils. I know that doesn't help the individual, but that's how that crops up. The broader point, though, is you rightly were saying, what about people who the council doesn't have a duty to house? And this was one of the issues I addressed when I came in as mayor, when I was saying I wanted to do something about rough sleeping and homelessness. So I created a bed every night, which is a scheme, you'll probably be familiar with it, that runs right across Greater Manchester. It is currently offering 601 places. That's the level we've got it at the moment. And we fund it, scraping what we can here. You know, it's not, because it's a voluntary decision of ours to create it. You know, we have to fund it and really, we have to be imaginative in how we fund it. We did expand it at the start of this year, and I'm pretty confident I've got these figures right. Rochdale's, we call it A-Ben, which you'll know, went from about 34 places to 60 places. So you might say, I've not seen that, but because obviously it fills up very quickly, but there are 60 A-Ben places in Rochdale Borough, and those are available for people who don't have a statutory duty. And it's more than a bed, it's a single room, it's the same room every night. You know, it is we try our best to help people get a platform to start to, recover a little bit and then move forward. I just want to, if I could just say it, I am becoming more and more, I've stopped going on about yellow buses now, and I'm going on about homes a lot more. I'm watching this debate about benefits in Parliament. Maybe we'll touch on that, Rob, at some point. The single best investment this country could make would be to launch a programme to build council and social homes as big as the post-war government. The grip of the housing crisis has to be sort of pulled back. The truth of the matter is, last year, 8 of our 10 councils lost more social homes than they built. 2 went into surplus for the first time in that year, in 15 years, Salford and Trafford. This problem is getting worse every year. And honestly, it's not the council's fault. It goes right back to stopping them spending the proceeds on replacement homes. So, to me, we're all struggling with the way this country is at the moment, aren't we? If you focus 100% on sorting the housing crisis, to me, so many other things get fixed. If people have a good, secure home, so many things become possible. If they don't have that, you end up spending loads of public money sort of chasing the failure that arises from that. So, I will continue to advocate that. I've talked about the need for housing first as a philosophy in Greater Manchester. It's the first thing you need to focus on. If you go down to Whitehall and Westminster, as I have to do, you're lucky if it's 8 or 9 on the priority list. They go straight to NHS, defence. If you invest in housing, you just solve so many things for people. And I just think for a long time now, for quite a number of decades, we've got housing policy in this country completely and utterly wrong. We've got to get to a point before 2030 when we are building more social homes than we are losing across Greater Manchester as a whole, and I would hope in every single borough.
Thank you, Andy. Lady in the red top just there. Yeah, just behind you.
Hiya. I know you've touched on some of this, but I live on Lower Failinge in central Rochdale, and Rochdale Borough-wide Housing intend to demolish hundreds of our homes with no plan to replace them in the immediate term. What can you do to protect the community from this devastating loss of social housing, and to protect the vital mature green spaces that border these homes, and to keep it a car-free environment? I live on one block that's been refurbished. 3 feet, literally 3 feet away from my block, RBH have decided that block is now no longer fit for purpose, even though it was built the same time as our block, and they want to knock it down. There's just no sense in it. Is there anything you can do to help us?
Yes, is the answer. And credit, I might say, to a number of councillors in this council, because RBH, going back, they just, as I understand it, Neil, took some decisions despite the opposition that was in this council. And And this is something, you know, I'm going to mention buses now, but the thing about public control is it really matters. You know, when you put buses back under public control, it's been a revelation to me, you know, how much becomes possible when it's properly under public control. Like everything in this country, we kind of passed everything out to third parties and everything, and then you lose the ability to, you know, make it work for people, or you risk losing that ability. And Neil has been one who's argued a lot, haven't you, for the return of what's called the golden share, that the council always has that sort of holds the position. So you asked me what am I doing? I've set up College Bank Task Force. So I chaired the first meeting of it, I think it was about a month ago. And what we would like to do is save the Seven Sisters, for sure. I'm working with the council and RBH, who now are in a different position from where they were, to see if we can put together a plan to do precisely that for all of the reasons that you gave. I don't want to give you false hope tonight, because it's challenging given the condition of some of them and because of the blight on them for all of those years. But hopefully you can see a sign of intent there. You know, like I was just saying to the gentleman a minute ago, how can you say we need more social housing? You just look at that and, you know, let it go to rack and ruin. It's just not right. It was never right what they did, ever. And it now well, we're going to see if we can fix it. Do you want to add anything, Neil? Have I covered it? Or?
No, I think that's fine. Just to say that opposite the lady talked about Lower Failing, look, which is next to College.
Oh, I got it slightly. Oh wait, is it?
No. It's across the road, but she's got a point about Lower Failing. She certainly has, because again, I think they were built sort of early 1970s, so they're not that old really. But it's, you know, but I think RBH seem to see it as, you know, as something they want to get rid of, and it's something that at the council, you know, we're not in favour of either. So, but unfortunately, you know, we don't own them anymore. I wish we still did.
Yeah, so do I.
Got time for one more question on housing before we move on to something else. The gentleman waiting patiently there in the blue shirt.
Right, I've got just to go over something you said earlier about mixing housing and retail. Preston were doing that about 10 years ago. I don't know how successful it's been, but I agree with that. I'm hoping in Middleton you could tell us that a certain mill might be opening up to housing. That might be on the agenda later on, but okay, thank you.
Well, you're talking here to an ex-star reporter on the Middleton Guardian, so I don't need any. I didn't know my Lower Failing a minute ago, but I do know my Warwick Mill from my you know, my Middleton other landmarks, Mills Hill. I think we're getting closer, Neil, aren't we? And I think there's some. I don't know if anyone's from Middleton this evening, but.
I've been to Stockport. It's lovely Stockport, what they've done. Really good. Really impressed with it. But what they have done is maintained old buildings, done them up, invested in it. My concerns, I'm from Middleton, is that we're just going to knock everything down, and we've got lots of beautiful buildings that we don't do anything with. So I think we need to look at what Stockport has done. I think it is really good what they've done.
No, I agree with you. So the one I think that you might be referring to is Weir Mill, which is on the Mersey there, right in the middle of Stockport. And that, I think, is pretty much complete now. That's a very old historic mill that is amazing modern living facility now. So Warwick Mill can be absolutely the same. It's been heartbreaking, hasn't it, to see the mill empty for all, looming over the town for all of these years. No, I think honestly, I do. I think you keep your old buildings, and you create a mix, don't you? But where, you can have sympathetic development as well alongside them. There's so much potential in Middleton. I am a little biased because of my. It was my first job outside of university, but I developed a big attachment to Middleton in that time. So it's a bit personal for me. I really want to see I think the turnaround could come quite quickly. So watch this space. Actually, Neil and I will be making some pretty sort of big announcements around all of this coming up. Actually, we're focused. I think what's changed, the sort of the context. Manchester City Council have been building up north towards Middleton through a scheme called Victoria North. So there's a kind of big change, coming up towards Middleton, which I think, changes the whole area in terms of people seeing it as a place, a destination to live. But of course, we're also looking at new tram train connectivity. Now, I know some people say, well, that's Hayward, not Middleton, and it is currently, but I absolutely want to assure you that I would love to see a Middleton spur, and I'm going to look carefully at this with TFGM as to see how we can do that. To be honest with you, the Stockport model, the connectivity is the thing that drives it. I mean, the gentleman was kind to say about the retail and residential, and but it's the connectivity that makes the difference. I don't know if any of you know Farnworth, but Farnworth is a place that has gone through something of the same, where the developer that does Weir Mill in Stockport has done a new development in the middle of Farnworth, which was like an old 60s. I first went there in my first campaign as mayor. There was a pet shop. That was it. There was one pet shop left in this like massive 60s concrete slab arcade. That's gone now. There's a new development has come through, and it was because Farnworth has 15 minutes into the city. The thing about your borough is your connectivity is a major selling point. And once we complete the B network, you're going to have one of the best public transport systems, not just certainly not just in Greater Manchester, but in the whole country outside of London. And that becomes a really big selling point for you.
So what a good opportunity to segue into some transport questions. And we have the first one, which is from Jez Parton. Where's Jez?
Thank you. Hello. How advanced are the plans for an integrated public transport ticket similar to the London Oyster card, and how will this integrate with rail operators?
So we have it for bus and tram now. It's in place. So you can tap in on a bus and then on a tram, and it will cap your fare in a given day. So that came in March. And I think not everyone's got used to it yet, but it is already in place. So it's a daily capped system, bus and tram. The point I was making a moment ago about Rochdale's position with a potentially best transport system in GM and further afield, you will get one of the rail lines that will come into the B network. You'll be a sort of early beneficiary of that, and it's the line that comes out north of the city, Castleton, and into Rochdale. It's Mills Hill as well, isn't it? So it goes through, that's the line. So that will be under the cap, the B network cap, by 2027. So that's when it's coming in. So what we want to do is also take the stations and invest in, so the rail stations need to become Metrolink standard stations. We invest in them, we improve them, but then that cap will be in place. So basically, like London, you will just tap in at Castleton or Rochdale, you're in, and even if you've used tram to get to Rochdale station, you tap in there on the train, you're in, and then you're using, and it'll be, I don't know, when the rail is in, 12, 13 quid a day will be the daily cap. You will not be able to spend any more than that. With it, at the moment, it's much lower than that when it's just bus and tram. So the whole aim of the B network is, and I will stick rigidly to this, is to keep fares as low as possible. That is what I'm on a mission to do, constantly trying to lower the fares, improve the value for the travelling public. At the moment, rail is really bad value. You buy a train ticket, you travel into Victoria, that's it. It runs out, nothing else. And you spent 9, 10 quid on a ticket. And so under the cap system, like London, you will get so much more travel for your money with the B network cap.
That brings us on to a question we've had from Russell Clark, who's not here, who asks, when are Sunday train services going to return to normal? I don't know if anyone's tried to take a train on a Sunday recently. It's not always the easiest thing to do. I mean, there's a bit of background to explain about how we got to this point, isn't there? But what's happening with Sunday train services at the moment?
Well, it's a mad thing that at the time of rail privatisation, Northern Trains was created, but all the staff had different terms and conditions all over. And here, the staff were not contracted to do a 7-day railway, which is like, you couldn't, well, surely the railway has to be 7 days, it has to have cover for 7 days, but no. And it's never been fixed. And these are the things you learn as mayor, which, to be honest, are a bit mind-blowing from my point of view. So the truth of the matter is, though, because they are only contracted to a 6-day working week, the conductors, and I'm absolutely not blaming them, they're the lowest paid on pretty much on the railways in the UK. And so what we've got to persuade the government is to properly fix it. Give them an uplift in their pay, but in return for a 7-day working week. And finally, we got, I think, a mandate now. We persuaded the government just about a month ago to create a mandate for Northern Trains now to go into a negotiation to fix it. It won't, I'm afraid to say, be this year, unfortunately, but we're looking hopefully January, February next year that the Sunday timetable should start to sort of, jump back up against. It's not right, is it? But, I just look at the damage that privatisation did to the standard, it's like water, people paying huge amounts through fares and everything, and so much money was just siphoned out, nothing done to sort out the services. Yeah, not good. But anyway, we're slowly now getting to grips with all of those issues. So I hope early in the new year we'll have a return to a full 7-day timetable.
Okay, thank you. Who's got another transport question? Oh, I see a sea of hands. The gentleman in the blue T-shirt over on that side.
Thank you. So obviously you're doing in my opinion, fantastic job with the B network in Greater Manchester. You've mentioned in the past about why can't we have a sort of Northern rail card like the South have the Network rail card? And obviously with HS2 being cancelled and Great British Rail hopefully coming in, is there any chance, is that still something that you would want to develop perhaps with the mayors of the Liverpool region and the other northern regions? Because obviously you're going to be limited to sort of Manchester and a lot of things to help improve the prices at least across the rest of the north.
Yeah, definitely. So as I say, we're going to have a full capped system by the end of 2028 for Metrolink, bus, bikes actually as well, higher bikes, and rail as it affects 8 rail lines. So the 8 rail lines that are going to come in initially to the B network are kind of dedicated commuter lines for Greater Manchester. So one of them is Staley Bridge to Victoria, Glossop, Piccadilly, and the one, it's Rochdale, Victoria. That's one of the lines. So they will be covered, and then, but ultimately, when I'm dealing with lines that sort of work across cities, so trains going into Leeds or into Liverpool, I have to work with my colleagues Tracy Brabin and Steve Rotherham. But that's the intention, because they're on exactly the same journey as the B network. I think it's going to take them 4 or 5 years to get to where we are, possibly more. But when they are, the aim will be just to make travel cheaper right across the north, wouldn't it? When you start to link these systems together, and the cap should work over the whole of the north. So it's mad, though, isn't it, that we're only talking about this now. With the kind of standard of the transport we've had to put up with all of our lives is just ridiculous. But I think what we've got now, though, is clarity on where we're going with it. And I'm grateful for what you said about the B network. It's not perfect, but it is improving all of the time. And as I say, the big changes, people say to me, oh, you made no difference, just painted the buses yellow and blah, blah. Well, no, actually, because the thing about public control is we, you, me, all of us, we now control the fare box. So in the old system, the deregulated system, Stagecoach, First, they controlled the fare box. So if, let's say, they had, 50% increase in passengers, they kept all of the upside of that. Now, we control it. So the more people that use the B network, the more we can recycle the money back into it. So the money doesn't leave in dividends to shareholders, it comes back into keeping the fares low. So I will keep the £2 fare cap for as long as I can possibly do that. And I am absolutely confident it will stay for the whole of this year. And I'll be disappointed if I'm not maintaining it into 2026.
Thank you, Andy. We could take one more question on transport. The lady in the yellow dress at the front.
Very on message for the B network.
Hi. I do commend the B network regarding the fares, but where I live, in Shaw in Littleborough, it seems like the buses go, to 3 or 4 different areas, so it now takes twice as long to get into Rochdale. That's a sub kind of thing. What I was going to ask you, if my husband's actually 60 shortly, and if he lived in Scotland and Wales, he would actually get a free bus pass. But in England, he has to wait, or everyone has to wait until they're of retirement age, which is currently 67. Is that something you can influence to be changed as a Metro Mayor, and also get Tracy over in Yorkshire too, and then, or is it a central government decision?
No, it's a local decision if we chose to do that. And Liverpool has free travel at 60. London does, but the vast majority of places don't. Before my time, a decision was taken here that it's best to give as much as you can at retirement age. So we deliver, obviously we offer tram, train and bus for free at retirement age. So the decision was taken, and personally I think it's the right decision, because if I were to introduce the 60 policy here, I don't think I could sustain the £2. I would struggle to fund the R-Pass for the young people, and honestly, I will defend that. That'll be the last thing to go in my will, because at 16, kids being able to go to any college in Greater Manchester, find any job in Greater, that free travel at that age to me seems to be crucial in terms of maintaining the maximum horizons for our young people. So I know that might sound a little harsh, but I wouldn't, if I'm honest. I'm not far away. I'd qualify soonish, and I in an ideal world you would, wouldn't you? But because I think in the future, the more you subsidise public transport, there's lots of benefits that come from that, and lots of countries are doing that, and we're late to this. But I think I would rather have a kind of balanced policy through the ages. Liverpool doesn't do a free bus pass. Nowhere else in England does one other than us. For 16 to 18s, and I'm going to rigorously defend that, because but still see what we can do to sort of to benefit older people as well. And I'm still looking at things that I might be able to do to help. So it's not like we're not that we're sort of not looking. But sorry if that's the wrong answer.
Let's move on to a different topic now, crime and policing. We have a question from Leala Udall.
Hi, it's Leila Udall.
Oh, sorry.
Co-chair of the Race Equality Panel. Hello. I wrote this question before the Casey report came out, but my question is that obviously we had a local inquiry related to the grooming gangs, and there were several recommendations, and we're still waiting for a lot of them to be put into place. Now we're going to have a national inquiry, and my question is that there's lots of victims within Greater Manchester that would like to have a sit-down conversation with you, Andy, that they can be open with you and you be open back and have that conversation. And my question is, will you have that with the victims of Greater Manchester?
Oh, certainly, of course I will. No question about it. And the first thing I would say to them would be to acknowledge that there were limitations in the review that I commissioned. So for those who don't know, and there's a lot of propaganda around about this issue, which I think is, in my view, distasteful as well. And anyway, I commissioned a review in 2017, and it came on the back of the Betrayed Girls documentary, obviously about some of the things that happened here. And because obviously you see things laid bare there. There was further issues raised by Maggie Oliver at the time about Manchester and the closing down of a police operation there. And I took the view, and this was literally days within office, it was very, very early May 2017, that I couldn't hear that and not do something. So I set up the Greater Manchester Child Sexual Exploitation Review, Grooming Gang Review. And it's it's been running for 8 years now, and it actually will produce its final report next week. So we've kind of followed it right through to the end. And the reason why I followed it right through to the end is because I said at the start, I need to be able to assure the public of Greater Manchester that the arrangements that we have between Greater Manchester Police, and the Chief Constable may want to say something, Rochdale Council, all of the agencies, are they now right in a way that, because at the moment the public just hear all of the, you know, the statements that are made. So the final stage of the review will look at, has change happened as a result of some of the shocking revelations, and we'll come to that next week. But the thing is, I mean, we published the Rochdale review, and Kate was there, Stephen and Neil. It was January or February last year, wasn't it? I read that report, and one of the main sort of reactions I had was seeing sort of quite a number of references to ex-officer was asked to give evidence and refused. So if I was a victim looking at that, I would just be like, so I just want to explain this really clearly. I do not have the powers to create a statutory review. So I've always acknowledged the review I created had limitations. It couldn't force data sharing between agencies. It couldn't force people to give evidence. But I still believe it was the right thing to have done, because I'm confident that people are going to see that, externally verified, there has been a change in the way we do things. And maybe it's worth me handing over to the Chief Constable. All of the review, all of the three place-based elements of our review, Manchester, Oldham, and Rochdale, have all led to significant numbers of charges, arrests, charges, and convictions. And those wouldn't have happened if we hadn't started with the review. GMP have got a very sophisticated operation now, which again would not be in, that unit would not be in place were it not. I'm not trying to claim it's perfect, and it's why I actually said to Louise Casey, I made a call for the national inquiry earlier this year, at the very start of the year, because I was conscious of two things. One, that victims had never been able to, on the record, say, this is what happened to me, here's my story, and it's there, because our review just didn't have that capable. It wasn't set up for that. Second thing that's the problem, though, is we had no powers to compel, and hence the references I mentioned in the report. So I called at that point for a national inquiry, because I believed my experience of living through our review had said to me that it was needed. And Louise Casey came up to see Kate and I to say, well, I've seen you've made this call. I'm not currently supporting one. Why do you say this? So we explained the experience of the Greater Manchester review. And actually, she referenced this in Parliament last week, that it was what we said to her made her change her mind, and hence the inquiry now coming.
The inquiry doesn't take too long, and I think that's what the victims, and I understand about the sharing of data, and people didn't take accountabilities them years ago, but I still think we just need to see accountability for people that did play a part in so many children's lives across Greater Manchester.
100% agree.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the main reason why I called for a national inquiry. There has to be accountability of decision makers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because if there isn't that, then you never get the change in the system.
No.
But maybe Stephen, if you wanted to say something, but I am very confident. I would not have vouched for GMP on this issue when I first came in as mayor, if I'm honest. But I believe I can now.
So, good evening, everybody. Thanks for that, Mr. Mayor. So, as is well known, because it's just so very painful and topical in this part as well as other parts of Manchester, the reality is there's no prizes here for doing a great job today, because, candidly, GMP, particularly, together with others, but GMP, bears the scars probably more vividly than anywhere else in the country because of the extent to which people were failed. And there's just no easy way around that. The fact of the matter is vulnerable people were let down at a very, very difficult time in their lives, and we bear responsibility for that. Now, I've, as the Chief of Greater Manchester, have never had in any way any cause to demur from that position, to acknowledge that and to focus on two key things, really. One is the here and now. You know, can we make sure that our children today are safe and that this does not happen again? Now, nothing's ever perfect and there's no complacency here, but because, and I reiterate the point, there's no prizes here for us, but because of the scale of our past failings, I am really confident that what we're doing today with our partners, and this is being borne out by people independently who are scrutinising our arrangements, is as good as anywhere in the country. Now, being better than everybody else might not be good enough, but it's a hell of a lot better than where we were. The fact of the matter is our multi-agency arrangements now are very sophisticated. The chances of the same things happening as did 10, 15, 20 years ago are, as night follows day, less likely. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but it is less likely to the point where I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, and I can sleep in my bed knowing that children are not in the same danger that they were in yesteryear. The second point is that there are some people who committed dreadful offences and ruined lives. And despite the fact that it was a long time ago in many cases, we are working really hard, supported by very brave people. Bearing in mind these are people for whom dreadful things happened, which has literally ruined their lives in many cases. We could not proceed with prosecutions without their help, and we are getting the help from very, very brave individuals. And as I think the Mayor alluded to, just last week, and if I just focus on Rochdale, given that's where we are, just last week, of course, we had the latest in Middleton. We had 7 people convicted. Those 7 now bring the total to 32. There are another 20 currently charged who will stand trial over the next 18 months. So that will bring the total to 52 people who committed offences going back 20 years. As was seen in the Casey report, and the reason why I think Manchester's stats and our dynamic was so very prominent in the Casey report was because it was actually recognised that there are real deficiencies countrywide in things like gathering data, using data, investigating on the back of that data. We were very prominent because our staff was held to be good. And the last point that I would make is that people may say, well, you'd say this, wouldn't you? We did have in December last year the National Child Protection Arrangement Inspection published, and it's there online for everybody to see, one of His Majesty's inspectorate documents. That, I think, spoke very positively to GMP's child protection arrangements. Now, we are unique in the country in terms of having a CSC major incident team for historic investigations. And that which the Mayor has talked to, which we'll be speaking to late next week, will speak to the last in those mayoral commissioned things which take us from what were the bare bones of our failure, what was the true extent of our failure, what were the lessons to be learned, and then let's have a look at how we're doing it today. And how we're looking at today as a multi-agency, very sophisticated partnership across Greater Manchester, I think, again, speaks very, very positively to the current position. So without taking any much more time, there's just, for me, really important to just land those points. we're not looking for pats on the back here, because we've been brought to this place because of the extent of our past failure, and I acknowledge that. But where we stand today is we're as good as anywhere, and whatever improvements there are to be made, we'll make them, and I keep child protection as one of our very top priorities. The day we forget about our children is the day we really have lost the plot. And actually, I reiterate the point, for those who think they got away with it, you haven't. And if we can, we'll be bringing you to justice too. And there's a few people out there who do still need to have that cold bead of sweat, because we're coming for them.
Thank you, Chief Constable. Any other questions on crime and policing? Gentleman right at the very back there.
Hi there. I'll be honest, this is probably the second time I've come here because of GMP. And I'll be honest, I don't believe a word Stephen Watson says. I'm sorry to be negative. My case was recently in Mancunian Matters for GMP Corruption. Andy, I've written to you. I've written to Kate Green, who's tried to close my case down with the GMCA. It was with you for 4 years, awaiting an apology. I caught corrupt officers out, and they've written to my GP and made up crimes I did not commit. It's only recently I had a letter, which, to be honest, the letter's pretty disgusting, which I've sent to you today, Rob, so you'll see on Twitter. So it's not all right. I'd like, obviously, Stephen Watson to reopen what's gone on. Stephen Keeley, Matt Radford, those individuals need sacking. And I'm saying that now. My case, everything's online for people to read and make their own decisions. You do not, as a victim of crime, have GMP turn on you. It was pretty disgusting. And to be closed down in the manner I have, it doesn't wash with me. At the end of the day, GMP have got to take a good look at themselves. I'm supportive of the police in respect to making sure crime needs done away with. It should be looked at. But at the end of the day, when you turn on decent people, it's not acceptable. And I just want everyone to know that this is not all great, that GMP are doing a great job. Have a look at Mancunian Matters, see what they did. I got a payout of £5,000 from GMP because of what they sent and what they put me through for 4 years. I'm sorry to make a negative comment. It's not how I am, but I'm really passionate about pulling people to account for what they've done. And GMP, no officers were disciplined. The report from Stephen Keeley, it makes a mockery. There's a load of individuals that did really bad things that were not even mentioned, and it's not acceptable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. You've made your point. I mean, Andy, is there anything you want to come back on with that?
I mean, none of us would. I mean, obviously, I don't know all of the details of your case, so I'm sorry to have to, just to say that. But now that you've mentioned it, I will take a look. None of us are going to say, and I think the Chief Constable was saying this a minute ago, we don't say everything's perfect and everything is done right. I think what you have in myself, Deputy Mayor Kate Green and Chief Constable Steve Watson, you may not feel this, but I think the difference between what we do as to what went before, we don't say things won't go wrong. What we are prepared to do is look ourselves in the mirror and look at those things and look into things when they go wrong. In the past, there was a sort of GMP, just like, deflect it, push it away, don't look, but we don't do that. And Kate particularly spends a lot of her time, looking at individual cases. You'll have your view. We don't get it right every time, but I think what we do have is a commitment to look, as I say, at every where we get it wrong, to look at it and acknowledge it and make amends.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Let's move on to a different topic on. Oh, sorry, the Chief Constable wants to come in quickly.
Thank you. Look, I won't. You raise an issue which is personal to you, and to be fair, I am actually familiar with that which you're talking about. We don't always get things right, and the fact of the matter is, we don't need to go into the ins and outs. Suffice to say, we messed up in your case, and that is why you did receive a payout. So we don't do that for nothing. Let's not bandy it about. The fact of the matter is, you were wronged by us. We recognised it, and we sort of put it right. Now, there clearly is a tale to this story that you still yet feel completely unrequited. Now, we can talk about that, but let me just make a broader point. When we talk about corruption is an easy word to bandy about. Sometimes I think it's important when we describe people not doing what they should do, not observing approved professional practice. It doesn't mean that it's acceptable, but there's a difference between those things and being corrupt. People believe corruption to mean a willful dishonesty, sometimes working with corrupt entities, criminals, etc., etc. There's a high bar around that. But what I would say to you is that we genuinely have a zero tolerance approach for those who do not fit with our values. And again, it's not just fair words. I can tell you that in the years that I've been here, I have dismissed 140 officers from Greater Manchester Police on the straightforward take. We're a professional organisation. We have values. We have a discipline code. You either fit in or we'll root you out, and I will boot you out. And that is how we're playing it. And if you look at complaints and the way that our officers are conducting themselves, I'll just give you one very quick stat, just that gives possibly a slightly different view to that which you put about. We have 1.5 million interactions with members of the public. We arrested 80,000 people last year. We stopped and searched 52,000 people last year. At the stop and search, that 52,000, we had 147 complaints, which is 0.33 of 1%. In terms of our arrests, over 80,000 people, 70,000 people being arrested. 96% of those interactions, which are frequently violent and contested, resulted in a complaint. So I think for the most part, our officers are professional, they're diligent, and they're trying to do their best, commensurate with the standards that you all have a right to expect. Where examples occur of where they don't, it isn't that we're not looking to sort them out, and we are sorting them out. As I say, 140 are now in other walks of life because they're not fit to wear the king's cloth. You were let down. I apologise to you for what happened. Let's see if we can just sort out the tail end of this, because I think, fundamentally, there are occasions where we screw it up, and it's important that we acknowledge it, we sort it out, and we move on without leaving you with that sense that there's undone business. And I'll undertake to do that with you.
Chief Constable, thank you. We do need to move on to a different topic now. So we're going to look at young people and education. We have a question from Gospel. Where's Gospel?
My question is, what are Greater Manchester's plan to integrate AI and digital literacy into schools, universities, and public services? And how can young people be part of building that future? I was fortunate to interview you. That was March, while you were commissioning the B Network Tap and Go AI system, which is something that's very great for us. But I want to know, what are the future plans for young individuals in terms of AI, and how is that going to help us?
Stretching I'm old school on these things, but I will do my best. Obviously we talked about housing, talked about policing, talked about transport. I'm glad you've raised education, because I'm really passionate about bringing through another change that is another example of Greater Manchester, I think, fixing something that the country's created as a problem. And what I mean by that is an education system in this country that for too long has been too obsessed with the traditional university route. and it hasn't done enough for young people who have other talents, who want technical qualifications, and who want to have the best sort of employability, if you like, when they move towards the world of work. And this is what we call the Greater Manchester Baccalaureate. The truth of the matter is, at the moment, schools are required by Ofsted to focus on the very traditional GCSEs. And although there is a GCSE called computer science, you know, everyone tells me it's got barely any relation to what's needed in the, you know, what's changing out in the world. So this is a big priority for me. And you've asked the question at quite a good time. And actually, I know a bit more than I was cracking on at the start. We've developed, this is quite a source of pride, actually. Next month, we will launch a global first, which is an organization called the Raspberry Pi Foundation. I don't know if you've heard of them, but look them up. They are coming here to Greater Manchester to pilot a new, highly current, applied digital qualification for young people in Greater Manchester, recognizing that school isn't doing it for them. And this qualification will launch here, and it will be, they believe, a global qualification. But they've come here first because they like what we're trying to do with technical education, you know, that alternative to the university route. And simply put, this qualification will be achieved via a young person doing it remotely, with that, some tuition, some ability to access tuition, but outside of school or either in break time or after school. And there'll be a qualification for 14-year-olds, 16-year-olds, and 19-year-olds. And there will be an AI component to it, particularly as it gets to that older age range. So that is the best answer I can give to you. But I'm dead proud of it because it's Greater Manchester again, getting ourselves into the territory where no one else is, you know, fixing something that needs fixing. I mentioned before about the free bus pass for kids. I'll tell you why it's really important to me. There'll be kids in this borough, you know, who can see the skyscrapers of Manchester, but they're like, but is that could I ever live there? Is that world for me? So what I'm trying to do is give them the backing of the free transport and the qualifications to go and get some of the incredible jobs that we now have as a city region in digital and tech. You wouldn't believe the kind of range of jobs we've got in that sector now. There are high vacancies across the board because, you know, the talent isn't coming through the education system. So we're on a bit of a mission to fix it. And kids growing up in this borough can have really well-paid jobs in the digital and tech sector if we start to really show them those jobs and then give them a pathway towards them. And this qualification we're developing is part of that. So I hope that answers your question. It's a really good one.
Any other questions relating to children and young people? Lady, very, very keen, putting her hand up at the back there. Microphone's on its way to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Hello, my name is Sharon Verate. I love the fact that you have the MBAC and Curriculum for Life. Actually, it really shows that you are dedicated to providing relevant education to young people to enable them to thrive in life. You mentioned in a podcast in 2023 about the importance of financial literacy amongst young people. There is a strong link between careers, financial literacy, and preparing them for the future as a preemptive measure in relation to financial exploitation too. We're submitting a proposal to the Department for Education. We work really closely with the West Midlands Combined Authority. We're submitting this proposal directly to the Minister of State, Minister McKinley and Minister Smith. We would like Greater Manchester to be part of this pilot. Is there an opportunity to talk to you about it in more detail?
Yeah, definitely. It sounds absolutely up our
Just want to say, sorry, before you take my mic, this programme doesn't exist in the UK because we target its support for educators. So it's been about 2 years in the making, and we've incorporated curriculum assessments, a full curriculum from investing, from passive income, everything, even careers. And we work really closely with the Careers and Enterprise Company. So we'd love the opportunity to talk to you about it in a bit more detail. Thank you.
No, it sounds absolutely fantastic. And, this is part of what I was saying before. Kids say to us, school doesn't prepare us for so many things, and that whole question about financial literacy, completely agree with you. So definitely will, I think you're getting the card right away, which is pretty good service, isn't it, from the Mayor's office. I just come back to the main point. 2/3 of young people in Greater Manchester don't go on the traditional university route. So how can we just sit here and leave an education system that obsesses on that and doesn't do enough for them? In this borough, you have got incredibly strong schools. I was at Hollingwood Academy recently, who've got a really strong focus on technical education. Hopwood Hall, brilliant, doing amazing work with T-levels. What I want to get to is a situation where young people growing up in Greater Manchester can have visibility of all of the jobs that we've got in our city region, and then have a path towards them. They can sort of plot a path from school, from where they are at 14. And these T-levels that the last government brought in, I'm actually quite a supporter of them, because they have a 45-day work placement. And it's a proper chunk of time that, not the old work experience that many of us probably did. This is a proper commitment. And what we found, Hopwood Hall said to me, more than 50% of kids who do those 45-day work placements work permanently for those companies that provide them. So my policy is to have a guarantee of one of those 45-day work placements for every single young person growing up in Greater Manchester who wants one. And we're going to try and get to that by the end of the decade. I mentioned the Middleton Guardian before. I'm just going to come back to that. I worked as an unpaid reporter on Middleton Guardian because that was the early 90s. It was the only thing I could find. And like many of my generation, to get on in life, you had to go south, you had to leave. The amazing thing about Greater Manchester today, we're not perfect, are we? We're still work in progress, as the Chief was saying, and lots of things to fix. But it's a different reality here now. You don't have to leave to get on. There are jobs here that are amazing jobs for the young people of Rochdale, if we can give them visibility of those jobs and realistic steps towards them. And it's why I'm massively on a mission with this Greater Manchester Baccalaureate. And I still, there's powers that be in London are a bit, they obsess on the university route, but I'm not going to give up on it. I'm going to absolutely keep driving it, because I think that's how this city region goes to the next level. When everyone growing up here kind of has a sense that there's a future for them, and a positive one. Stephen would tell you there's too many young people kind of peel away in the middle of secondary school towards untoward activities and GMP and too many. We lose too much of our talent, don't we? Because we don't give young people the kind of clarity of the path that they need. So I'm sorry to go on about it, because I am passionate about this. To me, this is as mission critical as the B network or housing, fixing education so that every young person has a path to the modern Greater Manchester is crucial to our success going forward.
Should we see if any more children and young person questions? The lady just there on the second row.
Hello, my name's Katie Charlton. I'm Head of Schools for Rochdale Local Authority. So thank you for acknowledging the very strong schools that I believe we do have.
You do have a great system. Yeah.
A little bit of networking. We're just in the process of rewriting our education and skills strategy for Rochdale, so I'd be really interested in linking with the lady there about financial literacy. But it was really a question about Manchester Baccalaureate, and I think you're absolutely right in terms of being far more creative, thinking in the future about the pathways that our young people take. If you could give one sort of bit of advice to the educational leaders in Rochdale to make the Manchester Baccalaureate a credible option, what would it be?
It would be, if you buy into it, I think it would help all young people within the school. The school will be if you like, more together, because everyone would have a path. I think the reason why some schools hold back is currently they are inspected against the Ofsted framework, English baccalaureate. For those who don't know, that's the traditional GCSEs, and that's the problem. So I understand why they're saying, oh, but this is how we're judged. But I personally believe if they buy into the MBAC, as we say, alongside, it just, it stands to reason to me that if more young people feel positively engaged at year 10, year 11, the whole school will be more successful. Because we do a survey in Greater Manchester of year 10s, so these are, 14, 15-year-olds. It's called Be Well. And if you look at it, it actually is, it's kind of good in one way, but it has some sort of troubling insights. One is, do young people have hope, optimism for the future? And in parts of Greater Manchester, that figure is not where it should be. But one particular finding in it is you can see it tracks people from year 7 through school, and it asks them a question: do you feel a sense of belonging to your school? And what you see is it's very high in year 7, and it drops quite a lot down by year 10. And I think a lot of young people get to year 10 and think, I don't know where school is taking me. I don't know what it's trying, because they're the ones who are not on the sort of, the favoured path, if you like. So I would just say to them, be patient with us. I'm getting there with it. I'm sort of starting to sort of win the support at the national level. We're going to have a festival of technical education in the next couple of weeks. We're going to put the Raspberry Pi qualification out. We're going to really impress people with some of the T-level placements we've got. The Christie Hospital are starting to offer T-level placements. The B Network are offering T-level placements. GMP, I believe, Stephen, are starting to offer placements. These kids would have had no idea a few years ago, how do I work for the Christie? Or how do I work for the B Network as an engineer? But we're starting to open up, the paths are opening up, and crucially into, public services that are really prestigious opportunities. So if the schools bear with us, the more it opens up, the more they will see that there's a reason to buy in.
Thank you.
Let's move on to a related topic, which is skills more widely, not just for young people. Had a question from Suzanne Greenhalgh, who asks, what are we doing to bridge the gap in the skills market, and how are we combating unemployment across local government within the Greater Manchester region? Can local authorities do more for its residents and create great opportunities? I note Places for Everyone, MDC and Atom Valley are great and ambitious schemes, but is there anything more we can do?
There's a massive amount more, and actually, if I go straight to my sort of, again, big picture idea, I think we should devolve control of the benefit system. Because, we're having a debate about this in the media, aren't we, at the moment, and it's unaffordable, and the system just isn't set up to support people. It's a computer says no system. People fear interacting with it. It's never going to work. And actually, you all know the truth of it. People's lives are really complex these days. We've spoken about housing, we've spoken about wider issues going on. How on earth is a sort of narrow DWP sort of just, if you're just telling people to go for training without considering anything else that's going on in their life, it's just not going to work, is it? You're not going to support people into work. The evidence we have from what devolution we've had of the benefit system is that we are much more successful at getting people into work. And that's what is a bit frustrating for me about the current debate. There is a reform of the benefit system that I think would make it much more successful in getting people into work. But it means going away from the tick box sort of approach that a lot of people fear interacting with, by the way, the sanctions-based approach. And it's going, I want councils like this and the voluntary and community organisations in this borough, they should be the ones with the big budget to go into community organisations to help people move forward. Currently, we spend billions on employment support through the big corporates, and they take a lot of money, but they don't actually get any results or very minimal results. I think you could come at the benefit system again through devolution in a much better way than the way we do it, and we call it a live well approach. You know, if you're not living well, you're not going to be going towards work, are you? So like the lady's gone now, but sort out people's debt issues. Sort out the housing issues. You know, help them with some of the things that they may be struggling with food. And when you sort all of that out, you've got a chance of then helping them move towards work. If you don't sort any of that out, is it any wonder that the system just doesn't work? So this is what I would say. You know, and our big idea is live well, and we are bringing this forward, and it's a system along the lines that I've said, helping people really move forward rather than sometimes what the system does is try and trip them up and catch them out, and that to me just isn't going to work.
And when you pitch that idea to Department of Work and Pensions and Treasury, do you get the sense that they're like coming on board with it?
Yeah, I get the sense they're listening, not as much as I would like, but I'll give you one example. So we have got a new piece of DWP devolution. It's called Inactivity Trailblazer. Basically, what it means is, we've been asked to take on the names of 4,000 people in Greater Manchester who the DWP have completely lost contact with and have admitted that there's nothing they can do. They're just not connecting with these people at all. So we're now saying, okay, well, let's see what we can do. I'm not saying we can sort things out for everybody. I'm confident we will get a better result than losing complete contact with 4,000 people. So, yeah, we've got some steps forward. But to me, the problem is, you know, for those who know the system, you're often given quite a formulaic offer for training. You know, why would that work? You know, people have got different ideas, different talents, different passions. You want to build it from the bottom up. And that's what Live Well is all about.
Any more questions on skills? Or even, well, there's quite a lot of hands up early for children and young people. Any more questions about that? Yeah, the gentleman over on that side.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, Andy, I want to commend you on your living well, throwing your weight behind that. I was at the meeting about 6 weeks ago in Manchester, and really impressed with that. So thanks for that. In Middleton, where I live, we're hopefully looking forward to the MDC or the development zone. My big missing from that is going back to youth, and I've heard the Chief Con say youth is our future, and you've said it. Is there going to be any provision for children in there, like the youth zone in Harper Hay is an amazing place. Rochdale Youth Service is a really good service, but run on with limited funds. Middleton, obviously the heroes of some young Middleton people are balaclavas and e-bikes, which we need to get rid of from the town centre, which I'm sure everybody's aware of. But if we try to engage some of the children in education, what are we doing for those children who are not in education, who are finding themselves lost? We need to provide in Middleton, as part of the MDC, something for young people to be engaged in and feel that they belong to Middleton if they're not in education.
Neil, I don't know if you want to come in on this one, but I mean, I'll give you a first answer. I think it's such an opportunity to do something, isn't it, about what you've said. I will take on board tonight to, when we've got the MDC set up and the chair of it and the people involved in it, I think we should look at a possibility of a youth zone within the borders of the MDC. Kate and I have got an ambition about opening more safe spaces, youth spaces in Greater Manchester. I'm completely open to looking to see whether we can achieve that. I mean, the great thing about Middleton is it's got really good assets, hasn't it? The arena and other things, you know, it's got good assets. It's just that they're not pulled together in the way that you would want. But the other thing I would say is it just goes back to the earlier comment about building more homes in the place and, you know, more people living directly in the heart of Middleton. That can change the feel of a place, you know, because like, if it all goes quiet at 6 o'clock and there's nobody milling around, that's when the balaclavas and the scooters and the whatever, you know, that can take over, and then you're really in trouble. If you've got footfall going much later into the day, that's what starts to change things. But then at the same time, give some proper support for the young people who, you know, to be honest, don't have enough to do at the moment and do need extra help. So I would absolutely going to take that on board as a takeaway from tonight. Let's see if we can get an on-site centre or something similar in Middleton.
Thank you, Andy. Any more skills, children, young people questions? This lady, do you have your hand up? We put it down again. Okay. Well, we'll tell you what. As we've run out of questions, we'll move on to sort of any other business. Oh, lady in the pinkish top at the back there. Just wait 1 minute. The mic will get to you.
Stand up and if you can hear me. Hi, Andy, good evening. So there's a lot of talk about the things that we want to do, and that is going to need some people to deliver it. So as a small business owner in Rochdale, I'm registered with the Star Procurement Pilot, which I'm told is something that you sort of back very much, Andy, and it's to enable businesses to have access to contracts under 50K. So the question actually comes from a group of 260 small business owners in Rochdale who...
That's a lot.
It is, yeah. And the feedback from them is that they've actually seen zero contracts put onto this pilot, and therefore their question is it a real pilot? Is it something that is really going to solve the problem? And just your thoughts on how we can make it work.
Well, I can see why they're asking the question, because it wouldn't feel like it, would it, if that's the situation? I'll have to take this one away and look into the details, but clearly it's not working as a pilot if there's no opportunities there. The principle of it is something I strongly support, but clearly I think we need to have a look at how it's actually working in practice. So thank you. I will take a look at it and get back to you.
So on any other business, we'll come back into the audience shortly, but Christian Skade, who is not here tonight, but has asked, what's your view on the current state of local government finance, and what more can be done at the GM level to support councils like Rochdale, Salford and Bury?
Oh, that's a quick one. Shocking. Is that enough? I just think it's a thing, another thing I'm afraid to say this country has got wrong. I was in national government, I don't know if people remember, but I was in the last Labour government. And when I left national government to work more within local government, I just kind of get amazed at the arrogance with which national government and Whitehall treats local government. It's unbelievable. It's off the scale. And in my experience, they waste more money than councils do. Councils, they don't always get everything right, but they are, I think, have a tighter grip on, because things are so tight. And I think there's been some good moves by this Labour government, but not enough yet. You have to fix council finances, because I know you'll all feel that the potholes are not good enough and the overgrown things. That's the reality for councils everywhere all over the country, because things have just been cut back and cut back and cut back by national government. And it's, to me anyway, it's completely unfair, because we live in a time where people are feeling very alienated from politics and angry at it. If councils don't have a basic budget to look after the fabric of the place, I understand why they may feel like that, but it isn't the council's fault. They've just been. Every year I kind of, when we go through the budget setting, it's hard, Neil, isn't it? God, you're having to find another chunk of savings. It's just not right. And the failure of Whitehall and Westminster on local government finance, the biggest failure I can point to is since they introduced council tax. Do you remember when it replaced the poll tax? When they introduced the council tax in early 90s, the property bans nationally have never been revalued, never. Not once. No one's had the courage ever to go back to the banding. And what's the reality of that? The reality of it is there are properties in London worth tens of millions of pounds who pay a lower council tax than people here in Rochdale. And tell me that that's right. It isn't. Local government has, honestly, from every angle, all of its room for manoeuvre has been removed from it. And in the end, it has a consequence for the country, because then people feel, well, things aren't right locally. It's not, basics aren't being looked after. But I'm afraid that's what that has been a conscious decision of Whitehall and Westminster. I was saying they have housing as a low priority. Well, they have local government even lower. You know, when it comes to spending reviews, councils are pretty much at the bottom of their list. But why? Councils at the end of the day are the kind of last organisation standing in any area, aren't they? They're the organisation that needs the money for the basics. But it's you know, it reinforces to me why I left. I think Westminster and Whitehall get so much wrong, and you all know that, but honestly it does. And the kind of imbalance between national government and local government is a big part of the answer. What would I do? Well, I think there are things you could do. You could revalue council tax for sure. You could have a land value tax where developers sit on land banks and they don't use the land. You could definitely tax that, or councils could be allowed to tax that. We've talked of a tourist levy in Greater Manchester because British tourists pay a levy elsewhere in Europe. You know, when you visit, you pay about €5 a night in Germany and France. And well, why shouldn't we get that in Greater Manchester to help? Why should council taxpayers have to pay for everything? Because other people come into our area and put pressure on our services. So we could do that. Just to sit there and leave councils getting smaller every year and doing nothing is a disgrace, quite frankly.
Thank you, Andy. We've got 5 minutes left for miscellaneous questions. So the lady in the white T-shirt.
Hi, thank you. I'm here to advocate for victims, to road traders, to builders. A group of us have put a campaign together to challenge Parliament, and we have also designed a website with a checklist to educate families out there of what checks to do before employing a trader. We also need support to challenge Parliament to change the law. So when this happens to you, you're told it's a civil case. If someone comes into your home and leaves it in a worse condition than when they started, that is criminal, not civil. When they take money for products that they don't deliver, that is theft. That's a criminal case. Yet, many times we're told it's a civil case. Our challenge is to change it from civil to criminal, to try and bring these cowboys to account and reduce them from carrying on destroying families. There was in the newspapers a family in Rochdale, young family. The home was destroyed, paid over £100,000 to this builder. I don't know where they're up to. If they hear this, please get in touch with us. Our campaign is CAST, which is Campaign for Accountable Skilled Trades. After campaigning for the law to change, we want to regulate and license the industry to give confidence to people out there when they want to hire traders to renovate their homes that they are protected, because too many people are scared to renovate their homes because they're too scared to hire these cowboys, and the law doesn't protect the consumer. So many different scenarios. You're told it's a civil case. You go through the small claims, which it could be £10,000. You win, and all the builder receives is a CCJ. If it's a limited company, they then dissolve that company, so you receive nothing.
I can see the Deputy Mayor nodding vigorously in support of you here, so I wonder whether Kate wants to take this one. Well, I have total sympathy for what you're saying, to be honest.
Do you know, I've heard this so many times all over Greater Manchester. It's absolutely despicable what these cowboys do, often to older people, people on their own. They knock on your door, they say, oh, we'll fix your drive or your gutter or something, and they are stealing. You are absolutely right, robbing people. And then, exactly as you say, again and again, the law doesn't support criminal proceedings, the police can't act. And of course, these people can't afford civil proceedings. They can't afford to employ solicitors and go to court. So I'd love to hear more about your campaign. I think we've got all sorts of problems, actually, around the law, around fraud. governments have been looking at trying to reform it, but I know that we've still got far too many people here in Greater Manchester who are having exactly the kinds of experiences that you are talking about. So perhaps we could meet up and I could hear a bit more about your campaign, and we could do some lobbying of the government with you. I don't think this is good enough. If it happened to your mum, you would be really, really angry and upset, and yet the law could do nothing to protect her. We've got to get a grip on this, and let's see if we can work together to get, like you say, to get Parliament to look at what needs to happen to change the law.
Thank you, Kate. We've got time for one last question. I know the gentleman just over the middle row there had his hand up. So if you can make it quick, sir, because we are very close to the end.
No problem. I work with quite a few companies in Rochdale, and I'm just wondering what we can do or what we are doing to help companies upskill in the latest technologies.
We've got some schemes available via the Growth Company. So I don't know if you're aware of the Growth Company at the Greater Manchester level, where there is some digital support available. We've got the adult education budget, which we do use to give people who needed some, digital refresher training. So there is stuff available, but if you want me to connect you to the right person within our organisation, absolutely we can do that.
Excellent. Well, it has just gone 9 o'clock, so that brings us to the end of tonight's proceedings. Thanks so much for being such a great audience, and thanks for all your questions and for respectfully listening to each other as you gave the questions. Andy, thank you very much. And
no worries, Rob. Thank you.
You can get home for your lamb sip.
I will.
And let's have a big round of applause for the Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks for your questions.